All right. We are live with Naila. Naila is a 15-year-old passionate about sustainable energy, especially where it relates to nanotechnology. She's worked on a lot of projects like designing more efficient and transparent flexible solar cells, utilizing nanomaterials. That is crazy, like graphene and quantum dots. She's built a solar cell fusion propelled spacecraft, has a food waste reduction app, and a sustainable shopping browser extension. These are all crazy accomplishments for a 15-year-old. So definitely noteworthy, definitely praiseworthy. How are you, Naila?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. All good. Thank you for joining. I'm really excited to get to know you and some of the things that you've done. So for those listening, can you introduce yourself as well? Tell us what you do and where you're at right now.
Yeah. I'm a 15-year-old. I'm in Ottawa and I'm really passionate about, like you said, sustainability. My biggest, most recent project has been building a transparent and flexible solar cell. And that was more like a design, but I'm actually going to be building that out in a lab this fall. So right now I'm just doing a lot of school program for girls in Kenya, which I'm working on a little bit right now as well. And then I love to write. So my first novel just came out, and then I'm working on another novel right now, as well as a children's book series on emerging technology. So kind of putting together my passions for technology and writing and just getting students more excited about STEM earlier on.
That is great. I think your voice cut out in the very beginning part
Oh
of
no.
what
Okay.
you mentioned as well. So can you tell us a little more about the solar cell technology that you're working on right now?
Yeah, for sure. I've been doing a lot within solar energy. And so this year I designed this transparent and flexible solar cell leveraging nanomaterials. I was working on that for a few months, and I'm actually going to be building that out in a lab this fall, which should be good. So I'm just working on like ordering materials and, like fully understanding the technicalities behind solar. So that's what I've been up to within solar.
That is great. And what made you decide to get into, this field? Obviously, you're very young, right? So was this something that you started uh, taking interest in at a younger age, or did you just get into it?
Yeah, so I think I've always been like very, very interested in the environment and just a little bit shocked at our global consumption of fossil fuels. Because when I was really, really little, like seeing those photos of the polar bears, for example, just like knowing the impacts that fossil fuels are having on our day-to-day lives, that always upset me a lot. And so I remember in grade 5, we did this exhibition project. That's what it was called, and the theme was sustainable energy. And so I was looking into geothermal energy and, got really into it. It was good. And I think that's where I guess my love for sustainable energy sparked. But I just kept doing like research here and there. And this year is like the year where I actually started building projects in it, and networking with experts in the field and writing articles and going deeper than surface level, because grade 5 I wasn't going like super technical or anything
Yeah.
like that, just getting interested in it. So yeah, it's mainly just seeing what detrimental effects fossil fuels are having on our economy, biodiversity, etc. The list goes on, and wanting to do something about that.
Okay, that's interesting. And what is the purpose of, this solar cell that you're building at the moment? Is it going to be integrated into, a larger project later on as part of a kind of a bigger plan, or is it a standalone product that you're looking to build for other purposes?
Yeah, well, I guess the purpose behind it was that solar energy, it's really cool. We could harness the sun's energy, but a lot of people still don't have solar panels. And maybe that's because like it doesn't go with where they're living, or even aesthetic purposes. Some people think they're bulky, so they don't buy that. That's a
Mhm.
lot the case with a lot of people. And so I thought it would be really neat if we could have solar cells pretty much everywhere without us even noticing. And so the purpose behind a transparent and flexible solar cell would mean that you could have it on your car, you could have it on your window, you could even have it as like your phone screen, and it would, just have some pretty neat implications there. Right now, I'm just trying to build a proof of concept, and see, like, I'm going to be measuring the efficiency and the transparency, and seeing if it's actually flexible in a plausible way. And so right now it's more just experimenting phases, and then we'll see like where that goes, because if it did turn out to actually work, and be better than other designs, then maybe I would want to build it out and try to actually scale it. But for now, we're just at baby stages.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So you said that, there's an aesthetic element to it, and obviously there's a functional element to it. And I think both of these need a lot of work. So through experimenting, you're gonna make sure that, aesthetic wise, it's something that people would find appealing to use on their day-to-day products, or in their houses, for example, integrated within architecture, but also on a functional level. What I've heard, and correct me here, I'm sure you've done more research, is that solar panels currently aren't as effective as other sources of energy that we have. So
Mm-hmm.
we have a long way to go until we reach that, level of efficiency that we want, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, solar energy definitely is not as efficient as other energy sources right now. But that is being worked on, and I think, like, I don't know the efficiency of the solar cell yet. I still have to test it out, but it should be pretty efficient, and I'll like be experimenting with that. But also, as opposed to just having it on your roof and getting that electricity, if you also have solar panels on your window, even if all these solar cells are just say 20% efficient, then if you have more and they have like more space where the solar panels can be placed, then that means more electricity. So it have benefits in that sense as well.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. And since you said you're interested in, sustainability and interested in, reducing our carbon footprint in the environment, I know that on your LinkedIn, you have that you've built a food waste reduction app. Do you want to talk a little about that as well? What does that really entail? What is it about?
Yeah. So I didn't actually build it. It's more of a design, and we're actually working on getting funding for that right now. But we did a project. So me and a team of like 5 other people, really amazing team. There was this competition by the government of Canada, and it was about food waste reduction. And so we designed this app where it could scan the real expiry dates of your products, and then it's like, oh, you have this product in your fridge. Like, let's give you a recipe to utilize the things left in your fridge that are near to expiration. So that was the idea, and we lost the competition, but we're still like trying to actually go ahead with it. So there's like this UN funding source, and so we're seeing if we can get that, and then we might potentially be building it out, and coding it in a few months if we get that grant. So that would be pretty cool.
Good luck with that. It sounds like you guys got this, regardless of whether or not you actually win the competition. It doesn't really, mean that it's not a good idea. So definitely go forward with it. So if I understand that core concept correctly, it would, understand or document the expiry date for different products inside the fridge, and then give you data based on that and tell you, how long you have before it, gets expired.
Yeah, and then along with like recipes using those
Recipes, right?
ingredients.
Right. So just improvising with all that you have left in the fridge to see if you can make anything up for like a late night snack.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And you also mentioned the sustainable shopping browser extension.
Yes. So that is something I actually designed at a hackathon with the team back in November, I think. It basically helps you to shop sustainably. So it would be this idea for a browser extension to pop up whenever you're online shopping, you're on a clothing article, and you get a percentage out of 100 on how sustainable that piece of clothing is based on different factors, not only environmental, but also like the conditions for the workers, because that is a really big part of it. And then the second part to that would be you're redirected to a more sustainable alternative, similar in price and quality and color and things like that. And so we would basically partner with stores and retailers to get a commission whenever a customer is redirected to one of their clothing pieces. And so that's also not built out yet, but I am pitching that to the global consulting marketing chief at Deloitte in a few weeks, I think. And so maybe we'll get a bit of startup funding there. We'll see where it would carry out. But yeah, it was more just like for a hackathon sprint, actually.
Hey, I'd use that personally because right now, let's say if I'm buying the bulk of my clothes from a place like Zara that's fast fashion and it's not necessarily environmentally friendly, then maybe that extension can guide me to another site with a similar style and price point, etc. Then I can buy from there.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know if what they're buying is sustainable. And then there's also just the difficulty of it because you're thinking like, this is cheap, this is what I like. And it's going to be hard to find it somewhere else, especially because people think sustainable brands are more expensive. And so with this, it's really easy to just see another alternative, like really similar looking. It's like the same price, so no extra cost to you. And then you're shopping more sustainably. So I think it would be useful in that sense for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I got a question outside of all these side projects that you're working on. You're juggling all this with school as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. And it's amazing because I mean I don't know a lot of 15-year-olds who are first of all this active outside of school, but also very, intentional with the way that they spend their time and also very articulate and eloquent. So how is it that do you find yourself like standing out with respect to your peers, your classmates?
Um, I mean, I don't know if I can like speak to that, but in terms of like managing time and things like that, it's more just like you have the time, you're just spending your time doing something else. And so I think that really anybody can be working on these kinds of projects, but you need the exposure first of all. And so I joined this like amazing program this year called the Knowledge Society, and that's what really exposed me to these technologies and it encouraged me to build these kinds of projects. And so with that, I knew I wanted to be researching solar energy and be researching fusion energy and be working on this project. And so instead of like obsessively studying for a test and just regurgitating information, now I'm thinking, is this like the best way to be spending my time? If I already know it, I could be working on something else. Maybe I could be working on like I don't know, a project or research on a solar cell or things like that. And that's bringing me more value and bringing me one step closer to making impact. And, if you're like just looking at the same information, or even if it's like watching Netflix, you have time, you have ways that you're spending your time, sorry. And you can change that if you are intentional about it and your priorities and what you want to get out of everything that you are doing.
For sure. I agree. I mean, speaking about it in theory is very nice and it seems clean and easy to implement, but then actually implementing it and integrating it into your life is another story. So how do you how do you deal with distractions as especially as a teenager? I'm sure there's a lot of different
Mhm.
ways that you can be distracted, a lot of different things that you could be doing, but rather than doing those, you're putting your time in doing something that's going to be extremely beneficial for not only your future but maybe even the future of humanity. So how do you do that? How do you
Yeah. I mean,
Stop
I
yourself
think
from getting
like,
distracted. Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think like you still can be entertaining yourself. Like it doesn't mean that if you want to work on these projects, you have to give up everything. Like I still watch, my Netflix, things like that, like
Yeah.
shows and hanging out with your friends. It's really important to keep that balance. But in the end, like at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, did you like the way that you spent your time today? And did it bring you value in any way? Maybe spending time with your friends isn't making you like smarter or something. It's like making you have fun. And that is needed. You need like to get out and hang out with your friends. That's amazing. But like even at the end of the week, did you like the way that you spent your time, and did it bring you closer to your end goal? So for me, I think it's important to ask yourself what the end goal is, and what you want to be getting out of what you're doing. And so for me, the end goal is building projects to make impact in the sustainability field, and just making impact in general, making a real difference. And so is watching 5 hours of Netflix a day going to get me there? Maybe not. And so it's just about being very intentional about how you're spending your time. And so what I do every night, I like check off like, what did I do today? What didn't I get done today? Why didn't I get that done? And what am I going to do tomorrow? And what am I going to be intentional about? And that really gives me like a nice structure, and it's just like become a part of my routine, so that I'm always reflecting on what I'm doing and how I'm spending my time, and if it's bringing me value in any way.
Yeah, definitely. And do you have any favorite books that you've read that you want to recommend to people?
Oh my gosh, yes, I have so many. Okay, so for one, the one that I give to everybody, my favorite book is Children of Blood and Bone. It is amazing, so definitely just drop
Children
everything
of
you're
what?
doing, go read it. Oh, sorry. Children of Blood and Bone by Tommy
Mhm.
Adeyemi.
Okay.
It is amazing. And then big Harry Potter fan for sure. I love like the Land of Stories. That was a classic. That was really great. I think those are like the top ones that come to my mind. Sapiens, Tuesdays with Maury, Outliers. Those are good books as well. There are a lot of good books out there, but yes, those are the top ones that come to mind.
Okay, I'm curious to check out Children's of Blood and Bone because I've never heard of it. I've heard of all the other ones.
It is amazing.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. And Outliers, I finished like maybe half of it, so maybe I need to go back. This is a sign that I need to go back and finish it.
Yes, yeah, it's good.
And what's your inspiration behind all this that you're doing? I know you said that you're interested in building products within the field of sustainability and just making an impact overall. Uh, and I know you mentioned this recent program that you're in. I forgot the name, Knowledge Society you mentioned.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's been a huge inspiration. But what else? What else has driven you towards this path?
Yeah, I think my main inspiration is just knowing that I have the potential to make impact. And again, like I said at the beginning, when you look around and you see the destruction that's happening all around you, like so many problems in the world, and a humongous one is climate change. And seeing that, I think, is what drives me. Like seeing the amount of lives that are lost, innocent lives, like animals tangled up in plastic and oil spills and land ruined. It's just really shocking and horrifying to see, and seeing that is what motivates me to build these projects, and it's something that I really do love, so it doesn't really feel like work at this point. It's a passion for sure, and I think of it as something fun that I like to do in my free time, because once you do like look at these problems in the world and see like which one do I want to work on, or which ones can I further research, and when you discover those passions, then you fall in love with the problem, and then coming up with a solution is the fun part.
Right. Yeah, you find the gap, you find what's wrong,
Yeah,
align it with your own interests, and then figure out how you can best create a product or service or just whatever it is to help solve that gap, right?
yeah, for sure.
And I also know that you're a writer, you're like a published novelist, which is big. How did you get into that? What's the story with that?
Yeah, so just like a big reader. So I think that's probably what inspired me, just seeing the influence that words can have. And after reading certain books, you're just left with these messages that are mind blowing, and they really impact the way that you see things sometimes. And so I wanted to have that same effect on my reader. And that's something I'd always been interested in. Like before these projects that I was working on, and these problems, I was always really passionate about writing. And I think that happened just in grade or in when I was like 5 years old in English class, in the story writing days. So I was like in story writing class, and I was like writing stories, and I just really fell in love with it. And so I started off by like submitting stories to just a few competitions, and then stories extended to like chapter books, so around 100 pages. And then in grade 3, I wrote my first full novel. I just like kept writing novels because it was really fun for me, to incorporate messages, but also I write fantasy, so I found that pretty fun because you can create characters and worlds, and definitely not everything I wrote was good. So I'm looking at like the book that I wrote in grade 3 was about mermaids, so pretty legit, But yeah, I just kept doing that, and then in grade 6, I tried getting published for the first time, a novel that I'd written, and it got mass rejected by publishing houses and agents, and I was like, okay, but I wrote another book after that. I wrote it in grade 7, and then I was querying agents, and I got the contract in grade 8, and it was just released, I think, 3 months ago now. So now I'm just working on a sequel. But yeah, that's just something that's been a really fun outlet for me always.
Hey, you know what? You're like a living embodiment of all the theory that you talked about in terms of how to spend your time, because like you're very young, Nyla. You're like super young, but you've already accomplished so much. So I really, like wish all the best for you in your future endeavors as well.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
you're gonna crush it. But yeah, I'm very happy to have spoken to you, and I'm sure that we'll speak again. I'm excited to know more and more about future accomplishments that you take on and you accomplish. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we call it an end?
No, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was great to chat.
Of course, yeah. And again, thank you for coming on. I hope that all the 15-year-olds out there are as aware and as proactive as you are in terms of accomplishing, what they want. Because if that's the case, then we're gonna have a super bright, amazing future.
Thank you.
All right, take care, Nala. Bye bye.
Awesome. Bye.